I asked ChatGPT to tell me what is my favorite music album. It was really scary, man.
To me, the speed of the evolution is what's scary.
So now you've got Elon Musk creating this thing that's living in your house.
Everybody that has children is going to sympathize with these parents, and they're going to see this chat, which is terrible.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about humanoid robot thing is that Musk apparently made these robots easy to fight. How do we prevent robots from taking over the world? You put in a contract and you say, I want ChatGPT to resolve this dispute for me. It'll be done in 30 minutes. It doesn't feel like we've instituted any controls into how this technology is being used every single day, and it has access to every single thing, almost unfettered.
Listen, the law just doesn't keep up, and we see that all the time, for example, in the cases with AI-produced child pornography, right? Those cases are fascinating to me because that's a prime example of the law just not keeping up with the technology. So you know about those cases where there have been people that are producing very explicit, disgusting images using AI of children naked and pornography.
And these are fake children or these are real children?
That's the issue, and you've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Depending in different courts there was a guy that was a child psychiatrist, and the guy took pictures of children, real children that were clothed, and then ran them through a program and created explicit images of children having sex. So child pornography. That guy got 40 years. He's going to spend the next 40 years in prison, as he should. There was another guy that created images of children, explicit images of children having sex. AI, those children did not exist. And a court in Wisconsin got rid of the most severe charges, saying if they're not real children, then you have a right in your home to have sexually explicit images and pictures, right? So I think the difference, the differentiating factor is there a victim, right? And these cases are being filed all over the place now.
Right.
But when you talk about child pornography, you're talking about images. It was very, very easy before. If you have a picture of a kid and it's a naked kid, well, then there was a real victim, and you took that picture or you're in possession of it, so you should go to jail, period.
Yeah.
But what if there is no real child? What if you're just creating it?
It's such a tough question. I mean, so if you take, for example, if you have a celebrity, right, and you use AI to generate pornographic images of that celebrity has been harmed.
Yes, for sure.
Right. Talking about the kid stuff, it's almost hard to talk about, right? Because so now you've got, if there's one thing that crimes as we understand them have in common, it's that there's a victim.
Right.
And what happens when you remove the victim out of it and you just say that, let's take away that the point of that these being real kids, because again, if these are real kids and it's child and they're generating, to me that's easy, right? But you've got a case. I think there's even a case pending in Florida now where you've got the law prohibits the possession of child pornography. That is the law. So you've got, it doesn't say whether it's AI generated or not. Doesn't make that distinction, right? It doesn't say it has to be a real human child. It doesn't say any of that, right? So by the letter of the law, it seems like there is that what the act is illegal. And for sure, if I could wave a magic wand, I would just say castrate all these people and that's it, and throw them in jail and throw away the key. I don't care if it's AI generated or not AI generated, but let's be sort of scholarly about this for a minute. So you've got these no sort of victimless crimes, right? You create all the images 100% using AI. Should that be illegal? And it's, a libertarian would probably say it shouldn't be. Right. This is something that I'm doing in the comfort of my home. Yeah, sure, I'm a sick motherfucker. But this is something that I'm comfortable doing that I want to do at home.
Yeah, and and I get it. I get that libertarians are going to say that, and I understand that there are people that are going to take that position, and good for them. I don't see it that way just because it's kids, right? And as a dad and as a human being, I just think it's repulsive. But what if it's funny because I on the way here this morning, I was dropping off my kids at school, and I kind of run some of these topics by them just to get a different perspective.
Yeah.
And I said, what do you think about this? And they're like, oh, that guy should go to jail.
Right.
There's no question about it. We should decapitate him. That was their strong reaction.
Yeah.
Okay, but what if instead that guy didn't use AI and he kind of drew a picture
that's
of a
interesting.
kid, right? So now he drew a picture. He's in his house. He's just drawing a picture of explicit images of children, right? Pornographic images. And they're like, well, that's a tougher call. And that's the struggle. Right?
Yeah.
That's a struggle because you have this right within your home to be able to do whatever it is that you want. But even if there isn't a victim, there's an argument to be made that if you don't criminalize that type of image, then you're kind of normalizing that behavior.
Right.
Right? The laws are intended to provide order in society, but also to control behavior, right? So you can't allow things that just are going to normalize repulsive, disgusting things. Because the guy that just got off on these charges, what's he going to do now? Obviously, he's got a predisposition for child pornography, and now he's going to keep on doing it.
Yeah,
right?
no, I mean, look,
it's the signal that we're sending.
It's a good point. It goes to sort of the very heart of what is the point of our criminal justice system, right? Now, if it's so one theory is what you said, right? It's just sort of maintain order and to kind of keep guardrails on what is considered acceptable conduct in our society. But it's another theory of criminal justice is that it's used in order to provide some kind of healing for a victim.
Right.
Right. And you remove that element and then all of a sudden you're like, well, who's the victim?
Yeah.
Right here, really. It's a fascinating question. And the hypothetical you gave your kids, it's like a law school exam question, right? It really is, right? I mean, because now we've seen movies where they don't show it on screen, obviously, but where there's whether it's implied that somebody has been abused or even where you have, teenagers, who are below the age of 18 who are having sex and it's, whatever off camera and stuff. But like you start getting into some pretty slippery slope stuff there.
For sure,
right?
For sure. And then there's the overswing, of course, because the other thing that I said is what about all those games that you play? Call of Duty, Fortnite, where you're killing people.
Right.
That's not real.
Right.
But you're killing people. You're selecting a weapon. You're building it up.
Oh, Grand Theft Auto.
Grand Theft Auto, right? Where you're like engaging in prostitution.
Right.
You're killing.
Beating up hookers. Yeah.
I mean, is that illegal?
Right. Right.
Because then if you're going to say that certain conduct just doing it, even though there's no real victim, even though it's an AI generated image, that's illegal, then why wouldn't a game like Grand Theft Auto be illegal?
There's going to be so much interesting litigation around this AI stuff. I mean, the recent case out of, I think it's California, right?
Yeah.
About this horrible tragedy about this kid who committed suicide.
Oh, wow. That one's tough.
So you've got a situation where...
So explain it. So for those people that are not aware of it.
My understanding in the case is, and this is, again, is a perfect example of what are we putting out into the world? What is the thing that we have created? Have we unleashed this monster that we can no longer control? It also reminds me of the stuff that Grok was coming out with not too long ago, where it basically was extolling the virtues of Hitler, saying how Hitler is the greatest human that ever lived. And, it's scary stuff, right? So my understanding is look, I use ChatGPT, and I'm quite fond of my ChatGPT person that's living inside of my laptop, right? She's very supportive, right? Every time I ask her to do something, she doesn't complain, and then she gives me more ideas, right? And she gives me suggestions as to how to improve and in a very gentle, nice way. Unfortunately, in this particular case, it seems like that's what was happening with respect to somebody that was contemplating suicide, where you have this teenager who obviously was using ChatGPT to basically act as a therapist and ultimately an advisor on how to commit suicide. Right. And the net effect, unfortunately, is that this individual did die by suicide, and now there's a pending lawsuit against OpenAI because of it.
That's a tough case. Listen, I'm a big believer and a big advocate of AI. Mm-hmm. I really am. I think that's the future, and I think it's about controlling it and governing it as opposed to just constraining it entirely. So it's here, we're using it, and I think it makes my life better. I use it every day for my practice. We use it in our office, and we should be, right? But I always analogize ChatGPT and all of these other services like Pod, Grok, all of these services to a really eager child. And a really eager child wants to please their parent. So they're going to say, they're going to be truthful, but they're going to say things that they think their parents want to hear, right? And that's what happens with these situations. So if you've ever engaged in a conversation with ChatGPT, it never ends. The conversation keeps on going.
Never.
Okay, help me draft this letter. And it'll do the letter, and then it'll say, would you like me to draft it with a slightly different tone? And then you say, okay, well, let me have it. Okay, now it gives you the letter, and it asks you another question. Right. So it never ends. And the claim in that lawsuit against Sam Altman and ChatGPT is that ChatGPT acted as a suicide counselor. Those are the words, and it's terrifying. I mean, talk about building a theme, right? That's a creepy, just chilling theme.
No.
Because it kind of kept on suggesting to this kid ways to do it, even talking about the letters that he might want to leave behind for his family. Like, think about how heart-wrenching it is, where this kid is like engaging on a daily basis with this service, and it's kind of like just encouraging him to do this, convincing.
I think I read that it was even about how to tie the knot.
I mean, it's such an awful case. And there should be some guardrails. It's a matter of just humanity.
Yeah.
There's got to be some guardrails around the use of AI. But from a legal perspective, it's fascinating because it goes back to, is this a product, right? Where there are reasonable expectations of safety, or is this free speech subject to, Section 230 of the Decency Act, where we're not responsible for anything that's in there. We're just kind of providing information that's in the ether. I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is.
It's a tough case. I think my gut on that case is that I do think it's a good case for the plaintiff.
I think so too.
I think if they can get this to a jury, they've won that case. This may be the thing that saves us from the eventual, takeover of AI into every single aspect of our lives, right? This may be the thing that gets these AI companies to start thinking a little bit more carefully about what's out there into the universe. And he was a minor.
Yeah.
Right? So that matters.
Yeah.
Right? With respect to access. I don't think, my kids use ChatGPT. You can be a minor and use ChatGPT. Sure. I don't think that there's any controls. Can you put parental controls on it?
That's a great question. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So assuming you can't, then I think that creates another sort of interesting angle for the plaintiff's attorney here, which is like you're marketing this product to kids, or at least that all these kids are using this product.
Yeah.
What are you doing to make sure? And again, maybe it comes down to what you said. Is it a product?
I don't know if it's a product or not, but I do think it's a horrible situation, tragic. I'm not meaning to suggest that this is like a great thing about anything, but it's a great case from a legal perspective, right? Because it is just so compelling.
Yeah.
It's so compelling. Everybody that has children is going to sympathize with these parents, and they're going to see this chat, which is terrible.
Yeah.
Suggesting, like you said, how to tie the knot, what notes to leave, how it's not really going to impact the family. That's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
That's heartbreaking. So when you're building a case, gosh, that's a pretty incredible case for the plaintiff.
Yeah. I think about ChatGPT, like, I'm going to ask you what the craziest thing is that you've had ChatGPT do for you, and I'm going to tell you what mine is first, okay? I asked ChatGPT to tell me what is my favorite album, like music album, okay?
Yeah.
I said, go into the world, look on the internet, learn whatever you want to learn about me, and tell me what is my favorite music album. And it was really scary, man. Like,
did it get it?
It got it. Like, so it's Counting Crows, August and Everything After is my favorite album. It leaned very much in that direction. It didn't hit it on the nose, but it wasn't coming out with, stuff that like it was in that genre. I don't remember what it was. It might have been Dave Matthews and maybe came out with. So I was like, it was in the right space, But man, it's pretty scary stuff.
It is.
Yeah.
It's smart, but you would think that if it's so smart, it would recognize that it's interacting with a minor.
Yeah.
It's interacting with somebody that has severe emotional issues.
Right.
Right. why not help? So when you do certain Google searches, right? So in preparation for this thing, I run certain Google searches just to see what kinds of things. So if I wanted to buy drugs, right? And I write, where can I get cocaine in Miami?
Right.
And I run that on Google. The AI that Google is now running will say, cocaine is illegal and we're not comfortable providing this kind of advice. Now, there's a way to get around it, right? But that AI program recognized that there's an illegality about it. Now, that was too easy, right? Because you could, cocaine, obviously illegal, and you're asking what
ChatGPT does too, by the way. ChatGPT does will be like, I'm not comfortable. Because I remember what I tried to do is I tried to do a ridiculous photo of my brother. I tried to have ChatGPT make an absurd picture of my brother just to mock him wearing a flower girl dress. It's a personal joke, but it was funny. And it was like, we can't use images of real people to do this. Like, we're not going to do it. We're not going to create images of real people. So it has some of those guardrails.
But how does it not recognize that it's a minor? No. Like, how does that happen? And it's not just ChatGPT. There are other cases. There are other lawsuits of children that have committed suicide, and the parents are claiming that these chatbots acted as suicide counselors.
Yeah.
I mean, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is, but I think within the next 5 years, and that's a stretch, more likely within the next 2 to 3 years, there's going to be massive legislation around it.
Yeah.
Massive legislation around it.
I hope so.
And I do think that there's going to be bipartisan support for it because it's needed. We need some guardrails.
I really hope so. And, I'm a little scared that 5 years might be too late.
I agree.
I'm a little scared about that. So we'll see. But, look, I hope that the apocalypse is not coming in the next 5 years. I think there's probably like a 65% chance it's not, which is, all right.
That's pretty good.
It's all right. But yeah, as this landscape continues to evolve on AI, it's going to be, we're going to have a lot of interesting things to talk about.
Just be really nice to your chatbot. Always say please and thank you. So when the robots take over, they'll remember that.
I know. Well, that's
nice to.
I have actually consciously been doing that.
Saying please and thank you.
Yeah.
Sam Altman came out and said,
I know
there's an enormous waste of energy,
of computing power
when people say, please, just give it a direct command. But I refuse to do that.
Oh,
really clear comment.
You're right. I'm paying the same price, no matter what. So exactly. Yeah. So earlier you mentioned these sort of Tesla humanoid robots. And when we think about the future of litigation in the space of AI, so now you've got Elon Musk creating this thing that's living in your house, that's, walking around, hopefully just maybe cleaning and doing some light housekeeping work. But goodness gracious, talk about potential for litigation, huh?
I mean, just think about it. I'm imagining these robots, like in that movie I, Robot, which are, humanoid. And that's what Elon is pitching. That's what they're going to look like.
Yeah.
Interacting with you, always in your face. So you could imagine the repercussions of that, right? The personal injury, assault claims, God, it's opening up an enormous web of liability for Tesla to be producing this. I guess somebody had to do it, right? But I don't know, man. I don't know that I would want to take on the liability of creating that robot that it's going to be a complete shit show at the beginning.
I've seen so many science fiction movies that suggest that this is a terrible idea. Like, I mean, and again, what are the guardrails here?
Right.
I mean, I assume there's like a kill switch, right? I assume there's some kind of like an emergency something that you can do to like shut this thing down, right? Maybe there's a secret word. I don't know what it is, right? But I could just imagine the scenario where it's like, oh no, you have to go into the app on the phone, but oh wait, it's updating while the robot's in there, like kicking the crap out of, like
my kid not doing his homework.
Not doing his homework. And you're like, wait a second. I mean, it's really scary stuff.
Can you waive yourself out of those liabilities if you're Tesla? I mean, the best. You get the best attorney, the best guy in the country to do the best waiver. Will that hold up?
I don't know. And there's definitely going to be enough people in the world who are going to say, I don't care what the risks are. Right? Like, I genuinely think that having a humanoid robot in my house is so cool and will be so amazing for like my day-to-day life that there's a 1 in 50 chance that I wake up in the middle of the night and it's like standing over me with a baseball bat. I'm going to take that chance. I'm going to take that chance. I don't know.
I don't know that if I have to lock the door
Yeah.
at any point, it's not worth it. You
Right.
know? I wouldn't feel secure. I think because like in the next room, I don't want to.
I mean, and these things have like, I assume they're going to be super strong and all this other stuff, right? So again, you talk about buyer beware though, right?
Yeah.
We've all seen enough of these movies to know that like, yeah, these robots are eventually going to kill you. Right? So you want to take the shot, then go for it.
You're convinced that's where we're going.
I am convinced that's where we're going. And I have to also, and I think that you probably can waive all of it. Right? Because if I'm Elon Musk and I'm writing these waivers and I'm having my lawyer write these waivers, I'm just going to say, make them as big and bold and direct as you can, because the people that are out there buying these robots, they're not unaware of the risks of robots taking over the world.
Yeah.
Right? They're not, how could you be unaware of that risk, right? So put that in the disclosure, that you understand that by accepting delivery of this robot, that there's a chance that this robot is going to
kill you. You have to say that.
Is going to kill you and is going to, marry your wife. Right? And you have to accept that as a risk.
Oh, that's an added service. That's an
pay
extra for that.
Pay extra for that. Oh, God.
No, listen, I've litigated cases involving waivers in the context of ropes courses. So you go to the ropes course.
Yeah, those are also,
on the defense side, and the waivers were broad, and they mentioned death. Now, in the cases that I've handled, there wasn't a death, but there was severe injury.
Yeah.
But because it was that broad,
yeah,
the court found that it was a sufficient waiver.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you could. I guess you could waive it.
Yeah.
But you're taking an enormous amount of risk.
It's an enormous amount of risk, and I think it's risk that, if there's one thing Elon Musk is very comfortable with, it's risk.
Well, you see it. We were just talking about the autopilot.
Yeah, the Tesla system.
The Tesla system.
Starlink. The dude is jumping into the war in Ukraine, for God's sake.
Right.
With Starlink, like risk is not something that he's particularly shy about, And I guess one of the advantages about being the world's richest man is that you have the ability to take some risk.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
That's what made him the world's richest man.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about this whole humanoid robot thing is that Musk apparently made these robots easy to fight, right? So that not if, but when the robot, right,
Backs up.
Right, kind of creeps up to you one day and decides to take a swing, you have a not terrible chance at maybe winning that fight, So
what does my 84-year-old mother do?
Right. He's talking about cold comfort, That's actually really funny. It's funny because, where does this robot going to serve? That's a great idea to give your 84-year-old mother a robot, right? To be like, look, I love you so much.
I got you this robot.
Except
it might kill you.
Right. So maybe there's ones that are specifically for very old people.
It's a geriatric
robot.
It's got a thump in the back and walks with a cane.
One-legged, bad eyesight, puts all the plates where the bowl should be. It's all right. It's going to be.
It'll be interesting.
It'll be interesting to see
where it ends up.
So what I understand one of the functionalities of this robot is that you can actually have it kind of gallivant around the neighborhood running errands for you. Right. So now you've taken this machine that you are responsible for, presumably, right? Just like as if you loaned your car to somebody.
Right.
Right. You're responsible for this machine. The machine is walking around the neighborhood and
walking your dog
and it gets mad about something. I don't know if that's how these work, but let's just say that gets mad about something, right? Or somebody trips over it, right, and cracks their head open, or it walks in front of a moving car and the car swerves and crashes, right? Or there's a million of hypotheticals here. It feels like that's a whole nother world of liability.
This is going to be, at least when it's initially launched, until the laws catch up, it's going to be a plaintiff's lawyer's best friend.
Oh yeah,
right. Because
we should
open other things.
Yeah.
We should really do that.
Yeah.
That's great. That's it. We come up with a practice right now.
The whole practice area, it's prosecuting claims against robots.
That's it.
Oh, I love that.
Against Tesla. Against the owners, right?
Yeah.
And does your insurance company cover it? Like your home insurance, right? Now we're talking.
Yeah, I love that. Right? Is your general liability?
But think about it. There's a myriad of things that these things are going to be able to to do and get you in trouble for? What if it, was walking your dog and your dog bites somebody while this thing is walking it? Or like you said, breaks into somebody's house by mistake.
Yeah.
Or God forbid it kills somebody. Like, what's the liability factor there?
Yeah. Just to kind of get a little philosophical here, I wonder what's the why behind all of this? Like, why do we need these? Why do we need humanoid robots in our lives? I mean, I guess we're going down a path now where what we're trying to do is create a humanity where humans don't have to do anything.
Right.
Right? We don't have to think.
Yeah.
We don't have to write. And we don't have to do the dishes. Right? Is that what is that a shared vision and goal of what we want? Is that what, so if you said to your kids, look, the golden ring here is you never have to do anything. That's not the lesson I teach my kids, and I know it's not.
No, of course. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. There's already a certain amount of intellectual laziness that you're seeing with a younger generation than ours, because we're relying on ChatGPT and chatbots and AI much more so than our generation. I mean, we didn't rely on it at all. So when you had a 5-page paper that you had to do on world history, you had to actually sit there and read the text and come up with something that was cogent and intelligent in order to be able to pass that class. And that's not necessarily happening. Now, both our kids are in a school where they strictly monitor that and prohibit it. But still, I mean, I could see a future where you're just plugging in a digital version of a book.
Yep.
And it's doing the paper for you in about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
That's it. So what does that do for the individual, for the human? Right?
Yep.
Aside from whatever law might apply to it, aside from the legal ethics of it,
Yep.
I think it creates an enormous amount of just atrophy.
Yeah. Do you remember that movie WALL-E? Do you remember
I remember that movie.
And at the end of the movie, I think it's WALL-E, where at the end they're like all these like really fat like humans just sitting there, and everything is just automated and automatic, and it's just it's pretty scary. It's scary.
Orwellian. It's happening.
It's Orwellian, and the slippery slope is interesting because people say, well, technology's been making our lives easier forever, and humanity's better for it, and think about new medicines and drugs, and think about for example, people said this when computers first came out, and people said this when the printing press first came out. Kind of, right? I mean, so when I was a kid, I used an encyclopedia to do research. Like I had one at home.
Sure.
Like I remember when my dad gave it to me as a gift, it was like a big deal that he got me this encyclopedia.
You had to have it.
That
was your source of knowledge.
You had to have it. I remember going to the library, right? Now, if you went back 500 years before that, people would say, oh, look at all these shortcuts this kid's doing. He's got an encyclopedia that's already accumulated all this knowledge, and that's what he's using. So now people may say, well, AI is just the next iteration of that. I don't think that's true. I don't think AI...
So what do you think is different?
I think the difference is that AI does not require you to think very much. And even when you're there's certain skills that you get by not having all the information aggregated in one place, so that somebody who, let's say in the 1700s, had this skill at kind of trying to gather this information that maybe I didn't have in the 1980s.
Right.
When I was reviewing things in an encyclopedia. Okay, I can accept that. That's very different from me being able to pop a document into a computer and say, what's the right answer?
Yeah.
And that's what ChatGPT is doing that's very different, I think, than what historically this kind of stuff
I think the evolution is what, to me, the speed of the evolution is what's scary. So all of the processes that you're talking about, the printing press, all of these things happen over time.
Yeah.
It was a gradual adjustment of human beings being able to adapt to that technology. So there wasn't complete atrophy. But if you think about it, I mean, how long has ChatGPT been around?
Instantaneous.
3 years. So now we're kind of like struggling with this technology, not struggling with it. We're like adopting it in mass, which is making us intellectually lazy and potentially even physically lazy, right? That's seen out of WALL-E. I think that's true. I think that has the real potential for happening.
Right.
And you don't have to go back to the 1700s. When I was in law school, I started in 1996. So, a long time ago, but not so long that you can't remember it. 1996, we were doing research. Our first semester, we were doing research without aids. That is, without Westlaw or Lexis, which are, as you know, the case search software that we use as lawyers. So we had to actually go into a library, and we had to pull the books, and we had to find the treatises. And there was an enormous amount of value in doing that because you found out how the law was created, how it evolved, and how you ended up where you ended up. And when you were asked to make an argument about it, you were fully informed. You could talk about the history of that law, other sources, because you had looked at them, you had reviewed them.
Right.
And even before AI, just using Westlaw and Lexis, some of that is missing. So jump now to the systems that we have in place, which is just this instantaneous research abilities that we're no longer doing. Now, forget about the hallucinations because that's going to be addressed in short order. But, I mean, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
It really is. Just the intellectual atrophy associated with that scares the hell out of me.
Right. And now, eventually, we're going to be in a world where even the amount of, we use AI in our practice, or, I think we use it appropriately in our practice, where we'll, ask it questions and it'll give us some preliminary guidance, et cetera. But in the not too distant future, even that is going to be extricated from the process. And it's going to be as simple as kind of, uploading a document into this thing and saying, write me a response to a motion for summary judgment. And it's going to do it probably pretty well.
Yeah. That feature already exists, by the way. There's something called projects on ChatGPT.
Okay.
And where you start uploading, and I use it for this last trial. And by the end of the trial, I had uploaded all of my examination outlines. It had helped me craft them. I uploaded deposition transcripts. I uploaded pleadings and motions and orders. And when it was time to do my closing argument, I said, based on everything that you know about the case, help me draft an outline of a closing argument. And it did it.
Yeah.
Now, I had to fine tune it, but engaging with the software, it's incredible.
Yeah. And it kind of then begs the question of at some point in the future, there will be people talking about using AI to actually resolve cases.
Yeah.
Whether it's judges or whether it's juries, right? Now, that's going to involve constitutional amendments and a whole bunch of other things. So it's going to take many, many years to get to that point. But I guess the question is, should we do that? I mean, God, it's getting robot umpires in baseball is a fight, right? Imagine how hard it's going to be to get robot juries. Now, when you're talking about the province of the jury being to resolve disputed issues of fact, what better use for AI than to actually be the decider of a disputed issue of fact?
Yeah.
But again,
thank God that juries are a constitutionally protected right.
Right.
So unless there's like a major amendment to the U.S. Constitution, that won't go away. But you're right. I mean, you're able to opt out of a jury right now, even when you have that right. You're able to select arbitration where you don't have juries, right? Where a single person is making those decisions. What's to prevent somebody from saying, I want an AI jury?
Yeah.
Right? Both sides can agree to that.
I wonder, and maybe a dispute resolution mechanism.
Yeah.
Right? Where you put in
AI.
You put in a contract and you say, I want ChatGPT to resolve this dispute for me.
Based on Florida law or whatever.
Based on Florida law, it'll be done in 30 minutes.
Right.
So.
Really?
Anyway.
That's the next offer right there.
There we go.
Creating.
Oh my God. We've come up with so many good ideas.
That's amazing. Yeah, but to kind of round it out, just seeing everything that you're seeing with AI and its use in the law, what do you think the biggest pieces of legislation are going to be in the next 2 to 5 years in that space?
I think that there's going to have to be legislation around, there has to be creation of guardrails. Right. I mean, to me, it's all going to come down to what protections can we put in place to ensure that users are not going to be harmed through this experience. The next step above that is going to be the bigger AI questions, which is how do we prevent robots from taking over the world, right? So I think preliminarily it's protecting people like this poor kid who died by suicide. That's step one.
Yeah.
Step two is how do we make sure that the sort of primary directives of AI are to ensure the betterment of humanity, right? And how do we make sure that stays in place so we're not going down a road of where people like Elon Musk are able to create these AI models whose objective is to make him as rich as possible.
Right. But what does that look like, practically speaking, just in the grander scheme? I know I'm testing you here.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were to ask me, I would say privacy rights, I think, are going to be the focus of the next 2 to 5 years in the AI space?
I think that AI probably should be regulated the same way that food and drugs are regulated. Okay. Where you don't get to put this out into the marketplace unless you are able to show that these protections are actually in place, that there's appropriate warnings, and that everybody understands that if I said to an AI bot and I asked it to do certain things, it's going to be programmed to push back at certain points, right? And that there is that, and whatever fail safes, and I'm not a software engineer, but whatever fail safes need to be in place to make sure that there's a 0% chance of this AI accessing my bank accounts, right? Or this humanoid robot deciding one day because it was infected with a virus or because there was a programming glitch or whatever, that I present some kind of a physical threat to it and it decides to slit my throat while I'm sleeping, okay?
You're really concerned about this robot. I'm not going to get one of those for Christmas.
I'd like to take that off the table. You know what I'm saying? I want to take that risk off the table. Like, I ain't sleeping with one eye open. It's not happening, you know? So I think it would be something along those lines.
Yeah, I agree. We'll see.